Welcome back to Newsmax Now. You might recognize the name Wayne Simmons. The federal government calls him a fraud, and there's a fascinating story out now about how Simmons was exposed.
Former CIA operative Wayne Simmons joins me right now.
For years, Simmons appeared on Fox News as an unpaid guest, but federal investigators say his resume, which included him listing himself as a CIA officer, was a lie. Still, those fake credentials passed the sniff test at the cable news Goliath. Simmons appeared on several Fox programs and was treated as an expert on everything from domestic security to the rise of ISIS and the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. But back in October, officers arrested Simmons after a federal grand jury indicted him on numerous charges, including fraud against the United States, making false statements to the government, wire fraud, and defrauding a victim out of $125,000 in a bogus real estate deal. And according to a New York Times Magazine article, Simmons also made other wild claims. And he pushed his own controversial agenda, things like a moratorium on the construction of mosques in the United States, claiming ISIS could be destroyed in a week if U.S. bombed them enough, and that he personally witnessed narco-terrorists cut someone's tongue off. Also, the reporter, Alex French, who wrote that story, reveals that questions were raised to Fox about Simmons' shady background long before his arrest. John?
All right, Miranda, thanks. Let's welcome in the man who outed Wayne Simmons, former CIA operative Kent Clizbe. He's the focus of that New York Times Magazine article, as Miranda just talked about. Thanks for joining us today, Kent.
Thanks, John. Good to be with you.
All right, what was the first red flag for you when you first started hearing about this Simmons guy?
Well, let me first say that back when he was on Fox News, I didn't have cable TV, so I had never seen him on TV. I met him personally in 2010. A friend of mine, a mutual friend, introduced us. This friend was a military guy. He thought, two CIA guys, you ought to know each other. It's hard to say exactly what the first thing was, but within 3 minutes I knew that Wayne was not and never had been a CIA officer.
And this is your area of expertise, right? You are trained in determining whether someone is legit or not. So you have this type of training, and that training paid off here. I wanted to also take a quick listen to Neil Cavuto. Once it all came to light, this is what Neil Cavuto said on his program. Let's take a listen. All right, we don't have the audio on that, unfortunately, but Neil Cavuto was forced to issue a big apology, which is the right thing to do. But I want to go back to what Miranda talked about. You know, there were some reports that this was brought to Fox's attention before he was actually arrested. Is it your opinion that Fox knew this and hoped it would go away? They didn't think it was a real issue, or is it just too hard to vet somebody when they've been in the CIA?
Well, John, I don't want to try to get into Fox executives' heads and tell you what they were thinking. I do know for certain that they were warned by multiple people and multiple channels that Simmons was not who he said he was. Is it hard to vet someone like this? Well, it is if you don't know what you're doing. If you do know what you're doing, and if you have the expertise, as I showed, it took 3 minutes to vet him and to determine that he was fake. I really hesitate to speculate why Fox responded as they did, or why they ever hired him or used him. I think that the key takeaway here is that we, whether it's the conservative media or any media, need to vet carefully and use trained vetters to clear people like this in very influential roles.
Yeah, there's a lesson to be learned for anybody who works in our business. You got to consider the source and do your research. It's surprising, I think, that Fox, as many resources as they have, they weren't able to do this. But I want to move on to how you outed this guy. You and your old boss, who we don't get to learn his name, was appropriate for the story, I think. You guys coaxed Simmons into admitting he was a fraud on a Facebook chat. Was that the moment that you realized, what was it like to realize that your suspicions were correct about Simmons?
Well, I mean, it was a done deal in my mind. In fact, I had already written an article exposing him and had it cleared by the CIA Publication Review Board before he admitted it. when he admitted it, that simply allowed me to add an extra sentence or an extra paragraph pointing out that he did admit it. The disappointing part, though, was I gave Wayne a chance to read a copy of the article before I sent it off for publication. And when he read it, he retracted his admission and went on the attack. And he sicked his buddies on me.
Yeah, and you talk about how you were actually blackballed from conservative media outlets for trying to out Simmons. What was that like for you?
Well, I mean, I've got a lot to say. I've got a lot of expertise that can and should be shared with my country and with my fellow conservatives. So it was kind of lonely, to put it nicely.
Yeah, I mean, there were some other signs there. He had a prior arrest record before he got busted by the feds for DUI and other traffic convictions. That could have been easily searched through LexisNexis and other things. But I want to talk about a bigger picture issue here. You know, he used his fake CIA resume to also get government contracting jobs. Did he ever have access to any sensitive information? And do you think the government could also properly vet him?
Well, that's the $64,000 question, John. That's what he was arrested for. The major fraud against the U.S., as far as I understand, is his actually using his fake CIA background on his security clearance forms that he filled out to get jobs as a contractor. If that got him a security clearance, yes, he would have had access. I don't know what he had access to, what levels, but if he had a security clearance, that allowed him access. And I know for sure that he worked in a couple of programs, and that's a good question.
Yeah, very concerning. Bigger picture issue here, not just about the media and trying to pass yourself off as something, but actually getting inside the federal government. And I know a lot of folks don't have a lot of trust in that. Ken, it was great to talk to you. Fascinating piece. I encourage everybody to check it out. It's available online right now. And it's also hard to believe that the feds claim that this is just a coincidence that his arrest came so close to the time that you outed him. Good work, Ken.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Again, check that out. It's available online right now. Also, we got more coming up. Reaction continues to pour in after Mitt Romney goes on air to attack Donald Trump, while the former Republican presidential nominee says Trump is not fit to run the country and the impact it could have on the Trump campaign. Who knows? We'll ask our roundtable coming up. Plus, stay tuned all night long, right after the debate. We'll have post-debate coverage for you, anchored by J.D. Hayworth and a cast of experts, analysis, and more after this.